A lot of people get them worried, or kind of are a little worried about them bucking because maybe they're not as, in the Western term we call it forked, as some may be, and be able to really ride one that's kind of bronking around there. And normally they'll buck when they go from the trot to the lope transition. A lot of it times it's because they don't lope off in the correct lead. They start crossfiring behind, or they're in the wrong lead, and they try to change it, or they're crossfiring behind and they can't figure out how to get their feet together, and so it kind of, they get worried about their feet and where they go, and so they'll kind of get to bucking. And so the biggest thing I found is not to interfere with them too much, just kind of get on there, let them go around, not try to guide and direct them too much. The more you pull on the reins and try to keep them in a specific spot, the more they don't really understand it, so they just feel bound up. They feel pulled on. And so if you can just kind of let them have some slack and kind of just go around there and kind of let them run, they normally don't buck very much at all, and a lot of times they don't buck at all because they just feel like they can go somewhere. And if I do feel like one's a little bit kind of getting a little bound up, I'll kind of push him forward. You don't see very many racehorses buck because they're going too much forward. There's not enough energy left to go up and down. And you see the bronc riders at the rodeo, they don't go very far forward. They go a lot up and down, but they don't make it. The arena's 150 foot long, and half of them don't get to the other end, just because they're going way up and down and not so much forward. So if you can get a horse to really stride out and go somewhere, they're not nearly as prone to buck. And then just don't pull on them, don't get them bound up, and that's why I use my hand or my rope or something to kind of just encourage them to go rather than my legs. When my legs start coming in there, that tends to make them round up and get collected and elevated, and that'll tend to make them buck a little bit more too if they're not used to it. So I just kind of get them to go forward and don't use my legs as much, as kind of just flap them a little bit until I squeeze them, and then just pat them on the butt to encourage them to go forward. And we've done this just by ourselves. If one doesn't want to go forward, I'm going to have somebody help me. Stand in the middle of the pen with a little flag or something and chase him around. That way you don't have to do anything. You can just sit there like a bump on a log, hang on both sides of the saddle, and just sit there and let them encourage you to go forward, speed up, slow down, change direction, everything. You don't have to do anything. And so if you have one that's a little bit worried about you squeezing them with your legs or whatever, or they don't want to go forward, you think you're going to have to kick him harder or swat him harder and it's going to make him buck, then that's what I would do, is have somebody help you. A lot of times people, they watch the colt starter guys, and the colt starters always are kind of by themselves, and the competitions are designed that way. But when you're really on a ranch starting colts, very seldom do you see one guy by himself start all the colts. Normally there's a couple guys, and they help each other. They help both saddle horses together. They let both horses run around. They both climb on. They both ride them around. They follow each other, and it just really helps the horses come along a lot faster. When we do it, we did it here without anybody else, but when you're watching it, how we normally do 5, 6, 10 of them at a time, we'll take 2 or 3 in here, saddle them all up, let them run around together, and then climb on them and ride them. Just because if they're in a herd, they tend to go smoother, easier. So don't be afraid to have somebody come in there and help you move him around a little bit, and that way you don't have to push on him so hard.